Entrepreneur's Enigma is a podcast for the ups and downs of entrepreneurship, so the wins and the fails that we all face being entrepreneurs, and how we learn from adversity. Every week I talk to a different entrepreneur with a story to tell. I'm Seth Goldstein. Come with me on the journey. This is Entrepreneur's Enigma. Let's get started. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Entrepreneur's Enigma podcast. I am, as always, your host with the most, Seth. I'm such a dork. Anyhow, I have a good buddy of mine, Kent Lewis. We met, I think, 2, 3, I don't know, a bunch of years ago at the Digital Summit in Philadelphia. Great guy, real thought leader in the digital marketing space. He's got an old hat when you think about it. He doesn't look that old, but he's been doing digital marketing since 1996. So I was 15 when he was getting into this, and not to make you feel that old, Kent, but but he was adjunct professor at Portland State for 20 years. He ran his company Anvil Media for 22 years before selling it, and then working for the man a little bit. We'll discuss how working for the man is not always that much fun. So, and now he's back out on his own, causing trouble. So, Kent, how's it going, buddy?
It's good. Thank you so much for having me. Always a pleasure to hang out with you, Seth. Yeah, I think that was 2 years ago, but it might have been 3.
I think it was after the pandemic or after the spike in the pandemic, because we're still in the damn thing. But it was like, I think everyone was starting to dust off the cobwebs, and we all went out.
Yeah.
It was fun. And you talked about the metaverse.
That's
Whatever
right.
happened to that?
So apparently, that's a good story in terms of what I'm doing now and looking to do is find another home for my thought leadership obsession. Speaking and writing, as I met you at Digital Summit, I'm writing for Inc. and SmartBrief and other industry publications, and I do that, and I love it. I made the mistake of telling the company that acquired my agency that, oh man, I love this so much, I pretty much do it for free, and they effectively called me out on that and wanted to see if I'd really do it for free. Turns out I wouldn't. The bottom line is that one of my thought leadership strategies the last decade has been pick a topic that I think is going to be hot the next year, research it, write about it, speak about it, get press mentions about it. And then I'm suddenly a thought leader after it takes about 3 to 5 months. And then I typically ride that wave for a year or two until it's no longer it's old hat, or it crashes and burns, like the metaverse and NFTs.
Metaverse was like, what was that? The metaverse was about a year. And then AI came in. It was crypto, and the metaverse, and now it's AI.
Right. Crypto crashed, and when crypto happened, I started going through the NFT side of marketing, and lightly touching on blockchain. Then I went deep into the metaverse the next year, almost 3 years ago. And then that started to take a dump when crypto dumped, NFTs dumped, and metaverse followed. Now metaverse is still going. It will continue to evolve.
Yeah, it's been going on since 2000 with Second Life. I mean, it's always been there.
Yeah, it's been there a long time. But it'll be not sexy. It'll be useful and powerful versus NFTs, which again will reinvent as more useful.
The idea of NFTs always fascinated me, but not in the Bored Ape kind of way.
Yeah, that was all BS. And there was a speaker.
You can curse on here. That's total bullshit. Yeah.
There was a speaker at Digital Summit that presented in parallel with me that was telling brands to invest in Bored Ape as a strategy. I was like, I'm not I'm not a financial advisor. I'm like, that's for damn sure. And that's why it was still, absolutely hot. And I was like, that just is a bad idea.
Then there was the cyberpunk ones.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, what's keeping me from just like screenshotting them and having one? Like,
right. Well, right. Nothing. Just it's bragging rights. So that's why until it gets part of business and like financials, real estate,
is something there. Yeah, I think
there's so there's there. But if we go back 10 years, I was like, or more. Like I started maybe 12 years ago talking about video marketing. And then it was mobile.
That's still a hot thing. Video marketing is very big right now.
Yeah, well, it's come full circle. And then I was doing podcasting 15 years ago for about 5 years. I had a show. I was a co-host. And then we just kind of ran out of runway. My host was like you, doing all the production, and he and his wife basically they went bankrupt and they ripped all the shows off the internet. And I was like, dude, it could have been free. I would have stored them. He's like, oh, we just didn't want any trouble. I was like, 5 years of weekly shows gone.
We're gonna take a quick break, hear from our sponsors, and get right back to the show.
That
I have so many on the Internet Archive. This archive, I have like 10 shows that I've done since 2010, and I put on in our archive because let them have it. Like let them
right.
have the history. Like go for it.
That's right. It's a part of our culture, and I think
Yeah,
I'm glad you were smart enough to do that. It doesn't surprise me, but and I would go into mobile, and it was
yeah.
Amazon, it was voice search, and etc. And so that's part of my journey. When I was running my business, I was like, I need to stay up, so I challenge myself. There are a lot of
Yeah.
other facets to it, but my journey was the accidental entrepreneur. I kept getting
Oh, really?
fired as an agency guy, and I realized I didn't work well for others. And
You didn't play
spending
well in the sandbox.
no, and just having proven that yet again after 20 plus years is I worked for another agency for 14 months before I would say we agreed to part ways. They made the call, but I was 100% on board with that.
You're like, fine, see you
We
later. Bye.
we're
Yeah.
we're still absolutely cordial. I send them work. I still have equity in them. They're definitely turning the ship after a rough year, so that's good to
Yeah,
see.
this last year was a weird year.
It
2023
was
was a very weird year for a lot of people. Some people rocked it, some people didn't rock it. Some people are rocking it now, which I am right now. Things are picking up now at the end of the year, which is very
yes,
bizarre because it's supposed to be dead right now.
yep.
I mean, heck, before the podcast, you said you're off to Maui.
Well,
Clearly you're not busy right now. You're going off to Maui for a little
well,
while, some
well.
R&R.
Hey, listen, Seth. Here's the best kept secret. I put in the same or more hours than I did when I was getting a paycheck. The only difference is I'm not getting a paycheck. I just found out that our benefits may have lapsed
Ah!
with a family of four. That's not a good thing, especially right before you travel. So we're getting that wrapped up right quick.
You're scampering
Um,
around getting that stuff together, yeah.
Getting that, yeah, yeah. And but what I would say is, you mentioned I started in digital '96. I started my marketing career in '94 after graduating with a business degree with a marketing major, actually, or concentration. I started
Yeah,
in my career in PR, and honestly, that was huge in influencing my career in digital. Is 60% SEO. That's what I know
yeah.
best because digital ads weren't a thing. Banner ads, I wouldn't say really counted.
Banner ads. Oh,
And
those
so,
banner ads, like, smack the
yeah,
monkey or it didn't sound
yeah.
good, you know what I mean?
Well, and they had the X10 camera and stuff like that. And so,
Yeah.
bottom line is that I was for 6 years I was doing SEO before Go2 came along with the first ad platform, and I was still 4 or 5 years. It was '99, but AdWords was effectively early '02. So
What?
I
Really
had put
that
it.
old?
Yeah, it's only 20 something years old. But
In the
before that,
in the internet age, that's old, that's
it
ancient.
it's ancient. And the funny thing is,
Not calling you ancient, not calling you ancient.
no,
The
it's
technology
well, that's the other lesson. Having been, I'm between things, and I'm, like I said, looking for that specific role, thought leader at some Martech
mhm.
brand or whatnot, is being over 50, persona non grata. And I have other friends that are similarly looking. And once you're over 50, you're kind of screwed, both in the business dating world and the human dating worlds. I have a friend that he's a widower, and he's like, I just put 49 on my dating profiles because I couldn't get dates.
It's
He's
amazing
found.
when 50 is not that old. I mean, I just looked up, there's tickets going for 30 Seconds to Mars, Jared
Yeah.
Leto's
Yep.
band. He's 51. I
Yeah,
mean,
right?
damn it, he's Jared Leto for crying out loud. So, we're not Jared
I
Leto. He's
Actually, I
gorgeous,
can't
but,
believe
like,
he's 51. That's insane to me.
he's 51, but I mean, like, come on, he looks damn great for 51.
Yeah, oh, totally. Well, I think there's probably some creepy Dracula blood transfusion, something he's doing to keep looking fresh, but it's working. Um,
It's working, but yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I think for me, I've been on panels. I'm part of this group, Entrepreneur Organization EO. So it's a bunch of business owners around the world,
Yeah,
17,000 some odd business owners. It's a peer nonprofit. You learn from each other and from
yeah,
experts. But what's interesting is I've been on panels where they're like, I had this vision and it hit me and I had to do this business. And then they get to me and like, how'd you do? I was like, once I got fired by my boss, who was a co-founder of an agency, he brought me in and then he fired me 18 months later. I was like, I clearly, and he believed in me. It was more complicated than that. But my bottom line was maybe I should do something else. Didn't really want to,
yeah,
didn't want to have employees. It's hard enough for me to just hang a shingle and go out on my own, but I did that in 2000, late
yeah.
2000. But I didn't hire employees till late '03.
Oh,
So
wow.
I had contractors, freelancers, former
Yeah, that's how I
employees.
do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it worked out great for what it was. And I was launching a separate agency in '02 that's now called Thesis, and so that's 21 years old. And
Wow.
so
You see your
that's
baby out
done
in the
really
world.
well.
Yeah.
But I think the lesson is I hadn't worked for somebody else 2000, since 2000.
Yeah.
No, technically I did two little consulting stints where I was effectively full time. I just was more like a contractor. Point is, let's call it '02. So for over 20 years, I forgot what it was like to be an employee, but I always
Mhm.
cared about my employees. But my passion now is is employee experience. So
Yeah.
in short, I've been obsessed with customer experience my whole career. Like, I am going to be the most responsive. I'm going to train up my team and hire people that care about
Yeah.
clients. And that worked pretty well. I had,
Well, 20 years in the business. I mean, come
yeah,
on, seriously.
we had some great clients. We won some awards. There was some acknowledgement from others that we
That's
were doing
nice.
pretty
Yeah.
good. But it wasn't until I became an employee March of last year that it just like the matrix. I started to see it all and what it all meant. It meant that I wasn't um, that I was doing my intent was 100% right, and I got it right most of the time. But I would say when I thought as a business leader and an owner, I thought I was nailing 100%. Well, I would have said conservatively, modestly 95% right. Well, I learned I was 80% in execution at Anvil, but the new my new employer was, firing at like 60, 70%. And to me,
Yeah.
that was nowhere near the 95% that I would want and expect.
Exactly. That's
So
awesome.
after doing time as an employee and leaving in late May of this year, I started embarking on the self discovery of like what matters to me. And as much as
It
I'm
tends to
passionate,
happen though. Yeah, it
right?
tends
It
to
was a
happen when
serious navel gazing for 6 months. And what I realized was I still have a passion for communicating digital marketing. It's not the
mhm,
passion I have for the marketing itself as much as the communication to business
mhm.
owners and students, frankly, to help them build careers or build businesses. That's my passion
Yeah.
is I speak at the 102 to 201 level and I hand it off to experts like you,
Oh,
Seth.
going back to your university years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can teach 301, 401 to your clients. That's my handwork to you, for the chopping of the wood expertise that I don't have and do not want to continue to try and keep up. But I do try and still stay up on what's latest and greatest and read a lot.
Absolutely, you gotta stay current.
Yeah, but I do believe that the employee experience is you. I realized in just the last 3 months, you can't, even though I heard this back in '07 from this EO learning event from this guy that was a sales guy, but he's like
Yeah.
corporate culture by design or default. You either have cult of personality or you
Mhm.
have a structured culture where people behave consistently, whether you're there as the owner or not. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not doing it right. So for '07, so for 12, 13 years, I was engineering a culture that I
Yeah.
thought was going to be more successful. And I realized that it was still very much customer first instead of
Yeah.
employee first. So I realized this year, and now I've built some material around it and presentation, some articles, is that you can't have a consistently good customer experience without a really amazing employee experience. And there's a bunch
It's
of
so
research
true.
that it's logical, but the reason I mentioned that, it would seem totally intuitive, except Fortune 1000s, and this is based on some amazing work Tiffany Bova has done
Mhm.
and she has a book called Experience Mindset, but it's basically in quarterly financial calls, Wall Street calls, the word employee is typically associated with a company problem with missed earnings. They're literally blaming
Oh, that's
their
not a good
own
way to look at it,
people,
yeah.
and so that's deadly, that's toxic. So I realized, like, I think I want to get to entrepreneurs that
Yeah.
have and are building employee base to realize you have to invest. Every dollar you spend on
Yeah.
employee experience generates a return. Every dollar you spend on customer experience does not directly guarantee a
Not
return.
always. It doesn't always, or it's a pain in the ass to get the return, honestly.
Right. So you do it
It's a
through your
pain in the
employees.
ass.
Yeah. So that's
Exactly.
kind of,
So here's a question for you,
yeah.
because you've been doing this for 20 some years on your own, in your own sandbox. What is the best thing about being an entrepreneur?
I would say honestly, it's the cliche. It's definitely the freedom. I
Uh-huh.
felt like a caged chicken for 14 months after being a free range chicken, you know, Maybe that's a terrible
Better eggs
metaphor.
too.
Yeah, exactly. I was running around and I realized I had discipline when I was running the business. I had discipline as an employee. I was committed. I'm going to sell my business. I'm going to become the best employee they've ever had. I'm going to sunset my brand and be okay with it. And I did all of those things. But when they closed the office and laid me off at the same time, I was like, that was too much. Like that was
It
too hard.
hit home. It hit home.
Yeah, it really hit home for me, and it became very emotional. It wasn't the
Mhm.
deal didn't matter to me. It was the outcome and
Mhm.
how it felt. So I spent the last 5-6 months dealing with that, and I've pretty much gone through all the 7 stages or whatever it is.
Yeah, and because it was
Um,
your baby for what, 20 odd years? It's your
20
baby.
something years. Yeah, 22 years. So I feel like I was able to hand over. Now they kept the clients, they kept a few of the team. The financially was success for them, and TBD whether it's financially successful for me. We've got a couple more years of
Well,
payout.
here's hoping.
Yeah,
Let's
and
hope.
I just saw just today their quarterly, and the numbers are looking up, which is great. And I have a bunch of
Yeah.
agency friends that I meet with regularly that they've had really rough years. Some
Yeah,
the
2023
roughest
was
they've ever
rough.
had. It was really rough. And so the way I look at it, and this was a why this is a why in the road for all agency owners in the
Yeah.
marketing world. And the new normal is AI is messing with you and not necessarily in all good ways, right? It's
Mhm.
it's for SEOs in particular, it's creating a dearth of mediocre to shitty content, better
Yeah.
maybe than handwritten by people that don't care. But because
You save money that way, honestly. You can
yeah,
get you put shit in, you get shit out, but at least you're not paying for the shit,
yeah, you're
you know?
getting really affordable shit. And
There's
so, but that makes it's harder. It makes it harder on copywriters. It makes it harder on
Yes.
clients. Like the rankings aren't there. But here's where it's also interesting is on the prospecting side. A couple of my fellow agency owners are saying prospects are not picking up the phone and they're not responding to emails like they used to because they're getting inundated by automated drip campaigns.
Oh
So
my god, I
they
could
just shut
complain
it
about
out.
that for another hour. Yeah.
And here's another thing that you're more immune to being a smaller, leaner shop is one of my buddies has a, I'm going to have lunch with him today, he targets Fortune 1000s building like apps and tools, business tools.
Yeah.
He transitioned away from web development to app and product development. And he said all the big five, the big 10 consultancies have moved down a market as all the tech jobs were lost a year ago. They
Yeah.
moved down market from the Fortune 1000 to Fortune 10,000, and that's where they played. And they're getting shut out. Where these Accenture and all these guys, Gartner, whoever, they're coming in and they're just saying, we're the AOR. They're pushing out all the vendors to take everything, and that means they have to go down market. And down market, there's a bunch of competitiveness from folks like you that can be lean and
Yeah,
mean
who
and
are
dynamic
nimble. We're not
and
pushing the
affordable.
Titanic around an iceberg.
Right,
Exactly.
and you don't have the overhead that requires some big
Mhm.
costs. So the future, and I told this to my former employer, said a year ago, said you want to achieve your goals, which were big volume goals,
Yeah.
and it was of little interest to me. But I was like, I can help you achieve those goals, but the only way that I saw doing it is going the way that I know I never wanted to do, but I knew
Yeah.
would work, which is outsource, offshore, nearshore,
Yeah.
automate. So COVID shows that you can have a remote workforce. It's not as
Yeah.
fun. It
No.
may or may not be more productive. If you're in the creative side, I don't know that it's or product development side. I think there are much greater challenges there. But if you
Yeah.
have like a senior team that's very seasoned and independent, but works well together, I think that's great,
Yeah.
fantastic. But if you're not using automation, outsourcing, delegation, and streamlining the crap out of everything with technology tools and
You're
low
you're you're
code,
you're too bulky at that point, yeah.
you're going to be too bulky and you're not going to grow, or you're going to have the margins, or
Mhm.
you're not going to be able to reduce your risk meaningfully. So I told them this is the way you can do it. I know you're not going to want to do it. Like, yeah, we're not interested. So instead, they bit the bullet and took the way that guaranteed lost revenue.
Yeah, it happens.
They got
With
smaller.
that in mind, what is the scariest thing about being an entrepreneur? I mean, you're talking about lost
So
revenue. I mean,
yeah, so I think it's the feast and famine. So with the
yeah.
freedom comes the with the reward comes the risk. So the risk that I
Mhm.
experienced at a pinnacle in 2014 after rebuilding my business in 2013 was we lost coincidentally by and large our five largest clients within 45 days, which was
Oh my
45
god.
it was 45% of our revenue. So what that meant, that all happened in March. So what that meant in 2014 is for 9 months, I didn't take a salary.
Oof.
What I did do is, so instead of putting money into the business, we basically were just puttering along for the rest
Yeah.
of that year. And as we gained finally momentum, because we were pedal to the metal, we were like, we didn't hesitate and scratch our head like I
Yeah.
know. We dove in and we're like, sales full throttle, up the marketing, take care of the team.
Yeah.
Um, and so by the end of the year, my other two senior execs I asked to take a pay cut. I made them whole by the end of the year. So they had no,
Wow, that's
they
rewarding. Yeah.
ended up with no sacrifice. At the end of the year, they were square, but I never got even.
You
But I
never got
also,
back. Yeah.
out of 22 years, that was by far my worst year, and
Yeah.
only time I didn't take a paycheck for more than a month or two, and it
Wow,
was
a tough year.
stressful. But we did it. But the reason why I didn't even complain, I did not complain, is because I had 20 other good years. Right?
Yeah,
I
exactly.
had a
So you beat
couple
the yeah.
amazing years, so I couldn't. But I did. Here's my lesson: is I used that opportunity. I was not a open books shop. I would say,
Yeah.
here's our revenue per employee. I just wouldn't say, here's our margin. Here's how much is in Kent's bank account. So I
Yeah.
would use other metrics to show our progress and our success and everything. Nobody ever necessarily asked, but people did assume. Um, so when we had a bad year, I was constantly communicating with them about not woe is me. It's here's where we're at. We're still losing money or we're break even. We need to get ahead. If you guys ever want raises, which I want to give you, I need your help. If you ever want to get these other things you want, I try to make it about them, not about
Yeah,
me.
include them in
And
the
right.
process.
And that we were a team. And boy, by golly, we came together as a team and we did it.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, and so I've had leaner years, but I don't know about you, but I made I made half as much um, in 2000 from 2020 from 2018 to 2022. I made half as much as I made 10 years earlier,
Yeah.
because it was the perfect storm of clients with money, not a ton of sophistication yet. I was still an
Yeah.
early adopter with a
Everything
ton of
came to
track
head
record. It
now.
was a
Yeah.
perfect storm. So I was just like, bing, bing, bing. So that's why
Yeah.
when I had a rough year a couple of years later, I was like, well, I kind of deserve this, I guess, and I'll weather
Yeah.
it. And I did. And I was able to rebuild the business. When I sold in 2022, I did it because not because I didn't love the business or my team or my clients, which was true 10 years early in 2023 or in 2013. I was miserable and I was disconnected from my own industry and my own discipline. So by 2022, I was the best team I'd ever had. We were tight. My clients respect us. We'd earned their trust again and brought in some great new clients that didn't have baggage with us. We had expanded our services, but we're mainly outsourcing. That was kind of a sticking point. And I was re-engaged with the community, with my industry, because I was
Yeah.
picking those, what's the trend? And I'd stay, it had forced me to.
pdxMindShare came in. Yeah.
Yeah, and so all of those things happened, but I sold for 4 reasons. I wanted to give my team a clear path. We're only 11 employees, and how many titles can I give you with 11 people? It was
Yeah.
it was part of our credo not to be driven by title, and the team wasn't complaining per se, but I was worried long term. I had to fix that. We really needed more services in house to be competitive because we were organic and paid and social and search
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. We outsourced everything else, so I wanted more in house to be more competitive. And then I wanted to get my wife out of the operational role because she was good at it, but didn't want to work for me anymore. And rightly so. Mo- Every time, most of
I
my
love it.
employees didn't.
She wanted her
Yeah.
husband and not her boss. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she was like 24/7. You're my, it's like, I feel like you're bossing me around. I was like, can you just cook dinner and just be quiet? No, I never could.
Oh,
Now, she's an amazing cook and I do the dishes. That's
like,
like
hey,
me.
you know your roles in the kitchen.
I crushed that.
You
And then
crushed
the
that, yeah.
last was back to full circle. I just want to be a thought leader. I want to speak
Yeah.
and write and teach. And
Mhm.
and that's what got me for this company to acquire. They called and said, I know you want to be a thought leader. That's what we want. That's what we need. We'll take care of your team and your clients. And they've, to their credit, have taken exceptional care of our
Good,
clients.
good.
And the team that's remaining, I'd like to think they're taking good care of them. But we move on our own parallel paths,
Yeah.
basically.
So what is the most important thing to carry with you all the time?
I would say what's interesting is you've probably seen this. I think the more employees you have, the bigger the clients, the more likely you are to just get constantly kicked around.
Yeah.
So I was deeply degraded by my team. I have scars, like real emotional
Yeah.
scars from things that my team did and said from 2008 to 2013, 14. It was pretty brutal.
Yeah.
And so what I carried around, I think you need ideally a four-legged stool as an
Yeah.
entrepreneur. That's four legs?
It's
Oop,
for like, yeah.
four-legged. So for me, the first leg is you have to take care of yourself first. So
Hmm.
I've ever since COVID, I've targeted at least 7.5 hours of sleep when I was used to get 6.5,
Oh
and I'm
yeah,
getting
that's good.
closer to
Yeah.
8. I work out, pretty much every day,
Yeah.
and I eat well because of my wife, not
God
because of
bless
my
her.
own. Yeah, she's amazing. And then there's taking care of, and then there's family. So having a healthy relationship with your significant other, your children, your other family and friends. I've been
Yeah, it's
pretty
important.
pretty good at that. I could be better. And then there's your peer network, right? So I
Mm.
network. I have, as you mentioned earlier, pdxMindShare, which I started over 20 years ago, was just a way for me to help others connect. I love being a connector, but
Yeah,
I
you
found
are.
that
You're very good at that.
I was their crutch 80% of the time, but that 20% of crutch of the time when they were my crutch saved me, absolutely
Oh,
saved me.
absolutely. You
And
never
that
know
other
when having a good network's worth it.
Right, and that also relates to EO, Entrepreneur Organization, this other roundtable group of just agency folks I'm part of. Those business owners, we share experiences
Yeah.
and mindset. And I guess there's one other you could chalk up. The fourth is like spiritual or something else that fills your bowl
Yeah, it
or
kinda
your
gives you
bucket.
purpose. Yeah.
Yeah, so I have had all of those to help me get absolutely survive the donkey punches in the back of the neck, the kicks and the JoJos, that
Yeah.
have been. So if any one of those, home, work, kind of body and soul,
Yeah.
whatever, if one of those gets kicked out from under, you can still hold up. If you lose two of them, then you're
You're
really in precarious. So I always try to keep at least two to three working at a time, and that's kind of
That's
what got me
awesome.
through the hardest times for sure. But having that network and then being able to open up to them so that they can
Yeah.
help you, you can't just assume that they know what you're going through.
No, you can't assume that at all. W Well, Kent, this has been so much fun. I'm so glad I got you on. Our friendship, it means so much to me. I'm so glad we're friends. Thank you, to the Digital Summit for connecting us. I think
Yes.
that day we talked about Minecraft for a while there, about the metaverse.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh
Or
my gosh.
I haven't
Mindful.
been in Minecraft for a while, but still, that was
Yeah. No, you were building out some amazing stuff there. That's true.
Oh,
I
that
forget
the
about that.
world we have in the indie hall
Yeah.
community, shout out to Indie
Yeah.
Hall in Philadelphia. We were a little indie hall Minecraft server, and it is insane what's in there.
Yeah.
So,
You made the whole subway station, didn't you?
yeah,
Recreate
they
it.
did. I didn't do anything, but
Yeah.
I
Right.
helped improve it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. And
Always a pleasure, my friend.
if anybody wants to connect with me, I think there's show notes. Plus, I'm probably the
Yeah,
number one Kent Lewis on LinkedIn.
yeah.
Easy to find from Portland,
He looks
Oregon.
like he's pondering something in on LinkedIn.
I always am. That's actually a back alley, not far from my house. An odd shot my buddy took with his iPhone, but and then you can follow me on Twitter X. I don't like Twitter X, but it is a place where I share all my digital knowledge. If you're
Yeah.
interested, at Kent J Lewis.
I'll get you a Mastodon if it's the last thing I do.
I'm on there. I just don't use it.
I'll get you on there more.
Okay,
Right.
sounds good.
All right, but we'll see everyone next time. That was a great show. If you're enjoying Entrepreneurs Enigma, please review us in the podcast directory of your choice. Every review helps other podcast listeners find our show. If you're looking for other podcasts in the marketing space, look no further than the Marketing Podcast Network at marketingpodcasts.net. Goldstein Media hopes you have enjoyed this episode.